Today on Gear Review, I decided to go over this topic primarily because I've had a couple of my friends have contacted me over the course of the last couple of months, and generally if I get asked like a question more than 2 or 3 times by different people over certain things, then that's kind of how I choose maybe what I should do my next video on, just to, like I said, just to kind of like, I don't know, just get it out there. And if I'm giving the blatantly obvious to someone, you know, I apologize, but trust me, there are people out there that don't know, so this is for the people who don't know. Okay, I was contacted by a friend of mine who was having problems getting, he was having problems with the sound of his rig. He contacted me and asked me if I thought that changing the speaker out in his rig would give him a better tone. And of course, my immediate answer was yes. Take your rig down to a mutual place that we know where you can audition a bunch of different speakers in real time. You can hear how big of a tonal difference different speakers can make to the exact same tone stack. Okay. As we began to talk about what the problem was with his sound that he was trying to correct, it became evident to me that although an upgraded speaker would probably improve many areas of his tone, the particular thing that he was trying to correct may not be fixed by putting a brand new speaker in, regardless of the price point that the speaker hits. And this is why. In order to attempt to fight the enemy, and that's what I always like to call it, and the enemy, of course, is bad tone. In order to fight the enemy, you have to know the physics behind what you're doing. Because if you don't, you will find yourself fighting against factors that you can't necessarily control. You can tame, you can sometimes change slightly, but there are certain factors that you can't necessarily control or negate. So when I'm talking to him and he's going over his problem, he tells me that my rig sounds fine when I'm standing up and playing and everything. By the way, he's using a 112 combo amp that is set up on a stand. It sounds great when I'm playing in my room, but when I go across the room and sit down on my couch, it sounds like crap, and it always has. That was the first key, that there was possibly not that much wrong with his speaker. When he had the amp set up on a stand and he went and sat down on the couch, he brung the speaker close to around about ear level or face level. Here's what I mean about learning the physics of what you're combating against. Just so happens I have a speaker here. This is not an expensive speaker. It's like a Gear replacement speaker that I kept once I replaced the speaker, a combo amp that, of course, you know me, I no longer have. But it's a good tool to use right now. Normally when you're playing music, you tend to, most of the time, in one way or the other, you tend to always stand off axis of your speaker. Meaning, your ear is usually off to the side or up above the speaker itself. Therefore, you get a more blended mix of frequencies. But when you stand directly in front of the speaker, you're not getting that. Have you ever noticed when you walk into a club, or if you're at a concert, not when you walk to a club, but at a concert, have you noticed sometimes if you're standing in just the right spot at the front of the stage, the sound mix is not as cool, kind of harsh and shrilly sounding, but as you move to the back of the room, the mix starts to sound much better. A lot more lows, a lot less of the real sharpy, pointy highs are coming through. And that's because as sound moves from point A to point B, all the frequencies disperse and mix. But when they first originate from the speaker, they don't. This, of course, is the dust cap. But this area right here puts a beam that comes straight out of the speaker. Of course, you don't see the beam, so don't be stupid. But it's a beam that comes straight out of the speaker, and in that conical beam right there is where the majority of all your highs and upper, harsher mid frequencies live. The outer portion is where a lot more of the lows and the low mid frequencies come from. That's why when you move a speaker, when you move a when you move a microphone in and out of the cone, that's why you get different sounds. That's why some people, when you want more bass, you mic your speaker off axis. When you want a lot of definition and high end, you mic your speaker on the cone or the dust cap. That's why. So that being said, if you sit directly in front of this speaker, you're not going to get that nice, robust, bassy sound that you were getting when you were standing slightly to the left or slightly to the right or slightly above your amp. You're going to get all the highs, and they're going to be very concentrated, and they're going to be very in your face. Now, as you move back away from it, and as you move further away and a little off axis, the sounds, the frequencies, like I said, they mix and you get a better sound. Now, doing a more expensive speaker may improve that a little bit, but if you sit down directly in front of that speaker, you're still going to get that harsh, spiky sound. I don't care if you're using vintage 30s. I don't care if you're using a Eminence Cannabis Rex. I don't care what you're using. You're still going to get it. No, try it. Now, the things that you can do. One, the most logical, don't stand directly in front of the speaker. Most people don't stand in front of their speaker unless they're running a full stack and they have one set of cabinets that is right at face level. Most musicians play half stacks. It's not the 80s anymore. Most musicians are playing half stacks, and even in some instances combos. And even if your combo is up on a stand, a combo amp up on a stand is still usually only about waist or chest high, so it's still not in your ear. It's closer, giving you a better mix, and it's angled slightly upward, but it's not like right here, which is where you start getting the bad frequencies. Okay, so that's one thing. You can position your body in a different place. Two, they do make these things called beam blockers. Different companies call them different things, and basically what it is some of them are made out of metal, some of them made out of different things, but basically just a little cover. Basically a line comes down from here, and then it spans out to just a little cover, a little circle, and then a line down here to attach, and basically the frequencies come out. The high frequencies, they hit the beam blocker, and it causes the frequencies to disperse out. So what it does is it causes those high-end frequencies to prematurely start to mix with the low-end frequencies. So the range of where the harshness is shortened. Will it get rid of it totally? No. But will it make it sound a lot better when it's angled up towards your face? Yeah. But you're still going to need to be a certain amount away from the speaker in order to avoid getting it all together. That's one thing that you can do. Trying to think where I was going with the second thing. Actually, that was thing number two. Number one was actually positioning the amp, and that was I guess that was the second thing you could do. They make another version of that looks like a piece of angled plexiglass that basically sets like this, like a V, right in front of the amp like this, or front of the speaker like this, that actually acts as basically the same thing. It's taking the high frequencies and deflecting them out so that they mix prematurely with the low end frequencies. And that's something you can look into, and I'm not exactly sure what that's called, but I mean, it's all roughly works on the same premise as the beam blocker does. Now, the thing to be careful of, really, is to be extremely careful of getting a speaker that sounds awesome when you've got it right there in your ear. If you like a nice, rich, warm sound, you've got that speaker right on your ear. If it's nice and warm right there, there's a chance that when you're off axis, which most people tend to be unless you're the few people that are right there in front of the amp, when you're off axis, your sound may be too dark and too undetailed, and at the end of the day, almost unusable. So be very careful. Those high frequencies, although they're very irritating when you're assaulted with them by sitting in the wrong position, and although they're very hard to tame sometimes in a live situation, they're very necessary for you to be able to cut through and have detail and articulation to your sound and to your playing. So yeah, so I guess the biggest thing is to get a speaker that's going to be close to what you want, and to make sure that you're not positioning yourself in a way in which you're getting, the worst sound you can out of the speaker. Try to think if there's anything else we need to go ahead and hit on, since we already opened up this whole speaker door. I hate to make such a short video. Those harsh signals are not, it won't be affected by Openback or closedback. They're both going to be there. I was also questioned about Openback cabinet versus closedback cabinet, and the biggest difference. The biggest difference between an Openback and a closedback is a lot of times with an Openback, you get a lot of low end bloom, which means you can hear a lot of low end, a lot of oomph. The downside to an Openback is if you're doing something that takes a lot of palm muted articulation, sometimes it can get lost in transition. I mean, it can flip out because there's too much boominess from the Openback of the cabinet. Now, with a closedback cabinet, you get a more focused, tighter bottom end, which is better. It's just better for that. Me personally, I think the best combination is to mix the two so that you can get the bloom plus the detail. But I mean, practically, I mean, it's not really a practical application for a lot of budget-minded, working musicians and back-minded, because you don't want to carry around more gear than you have to. So whichever works for you. I mean, if you're general rule of thumb, and everybody has a different opinion on it, and no one opinion is right or wrong, because music is art, and art is there's no wrong opinion on this, because music is art and art is subjective. But for the most part, if you're doing a lot of open chording type stuff that you want to have a nice bloomy low end like country, even jazz and stuff of that nature, I think an Openback cabinet's really, really good. If you're doing a lot of articulate progressive metal, or a lot of detail picking with a lot of low end in a more rock format, I tend to think a closedback cabinet probably works a little bit better in that scenario. Really, there's not a whole lot more I can do to stretch this video out. That's pretty much all I got. But like I said, I just wanted to make sure that a lot of you guys weren't thinking that thinking that you change, because sometimes you change one thing in your rig and then you go do something that you don't normally do, and you think that you're combating this thing you changed. Like, oh, I bought a new pedal and I put it in line, and now my sound sounds like crap, but now you're sitting directly in front of a speaker. Or I put new pickups in my guitar, and now my guitar sounds like crap, but before you practice standing up, and now you're sitting in front of your speaker. The gear that you added to your signal chain isn't really the monster in which you're fighting, it's the positioning of your body and the speaker inside your amp. So, like I said, that being said, beam blockers, position of body, correct speaker choice. In that order, in order to come up with the least expensive solution to the simplest of problems. But I have seen people throw money hand over fist fighting this particular problem with tubes and speakers and having their amps modded, and they just don't understand the physics of how their speakers work. And I know a lot of people say, no, yeah, actually I do. I don't know if that's, know if that's a good thing that I know people that have had that problem, but I do. So anyway, this has been Gillen H2O. It hasn't really been a gear in review. It's been more of thought you ought to know. I guess it's been a what you need to know about speaker choice and amp placement. Anyway, check me out on my next video.